Examining Report ID 2026.
Yo, what's going on? What's up, everybody? Marcus Hart here. Welcome back to the Urban News Journal Live. Today, we got a country edging closer to a war Congress didn't even fully vote on. A Black Hollywood legacy getting torn apart, and probate court is another one, and a wedding that's still eating the algorithm alive 3 weeks later. 5 stories plus a bonus story, breaking news that happened earlier today. LeBron James, the king himself. He, oh man. Yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that and a lot more. So don't go anywhere. Once again, welcome to the show. But before we jump in, though, if this is your first time watching this and you finally caught me, hit the subscribe button right now. Seriously, do not wait. And if you happen to be playing the replay, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, because this channel is coming back after a long break, and I need you in the room for what's next. We are on YouTube, Facebook, and X all at once today. Drop where you're watching from in the chat so I know who's here. Now, let's start with the story that actually affects your wallet, whether you're paying attention to it or not. What's happening between the U.S. and Iran? The U.S. and Iran. What's happening? What's really going on? Okay, so that is our first topic. Here we are. The ceasefire that was supposed to happen. To hold over control of the Strait of Hamas. That collapsed, and for more than a week now, the U.S. and Iran have been striking each other over and over and over again, reporting. And I hate to laugh, but I'm laughing because it's silly. It's totally silly. Who in their right mind go from talking about peace and then all of a sudden let's continue to strike. Okay, and I'm talking about both sides, both parties that's involved in this. We can throw in Israel too while we at it. But anywho, the U.S. and Iran been striking each other. Reporting this week put the U.S. bombing campaign at 10 consecutive nights. That's 10. Maybe even if we did a +1, we can probably include another night that's coming, very shortly. Might be happening right now for all we know. And on Capitol Hill, the administration is now asking Congress for billions more on top of what's already spent. Really? So Defense Secretary Pete Hastert, he put the current price tag at $37.5 billion. $500 million. And that number is climbing. It's not shrinking. It's not getting small. It's not turning into a midget. Midget. Am I allowed to say midget? Unfortunately, I don't have anyone that can confirm whether or not I can say midget or not. Okay. But let's be real, though. Let's be real with each other for a second or two. $37 billion is not an abstraction. That's a number that shows up in your gas tank, in your grocery bill, in the interest rate on the loan you're trying to get approved for. War is never just over there. War is always able to find its way to your kitchen table. And here's the part that should make everybody, regardless of what party that you affiliate yourself with, sit up straight for this one. Pakistan is reportedly being pulled in to help mediate peace talks. when you need a third country brokering peace between two nations that are supposedly not at war, that tells you the temperature is a lot higher than the official statements are letting on and making you believe. And I want to be very careful here because this is the kind of story where people want to hear pick a side. And I'm not doing that today. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that today. You're not going to drag me into that. No way, no how. Forget about it. Cut it out. What I will say is this, though. And you might want to come closer to the camera if you can. Every time this country has been sold a short, contained conflict, and we can remove this for a second. Every time, it has rarely stayed short. I mean, for crying out loud, I was involved in one of those conflicts, OIF. I was there for a year, and it was still going on after I demobilize myself. I didn't demobilize myself. I demobilized with the rest of my unit. But what I'm saying is America has not stayed in any conflict short, and it has rarely stayed contained. We was promised that this particular conflict would be over with in a week. Maybe even like I heard, even shorter than that. But history doesn't need our permission to repeat itself. Obviously, right? Obviously. And the question I want you asking is not whose side you're on. Don't do that. I want you to ask, who is accountable for the bill when this is all over? Who gonna pay for it? Have we not learned anything? And this is what I mean about history repeating itself over and over and over again. We keep finding $37 billion nobody voted on by name, but we can't find that same energy for veterans already living with what the last war did to them. I'll raise my hand for that one. That's not a talking point. That's just the math. And the math ain't mathing. I want to hear from you on this one, though, before I move on. Open the chat up is what I'm doing. I want to take some live reactions, some questions on the Iran ceasefire story for 60 to 90 seconds before moving on to segment 2. And if we don't get anybody, or if you're shy, I see you over there. You're probably shy a little bit. If you're shy, you are able to visit the stream once it's over with and drop your comment there. Or if you're feeling even more personable and you don't want it to be public and you want to just say something to me directly, hit me up at press, that's PRESS, at marcus-hart.com. That's marcus-hart.com. And Hart is H-A-R-T, by the way, H-A-R-T. Yeah. So real quick, believe it or not, we are already at the halfway mark of today's store. I'm thinking about going to the store. I need to go to the store. I got to do some laundry tomorrow, and I don't have any laundry detergent. And I have a washer and dryer at home, but I have to go to the laundromat. I have a ton of stuff that I got to get cleaned up, but it's another story. But if you are catching value out of this at all, if you like my little side things that I do when I catch myself tripping over words, hit that subscribe button on the Urban News Journal right now and follow us on Facebook and X too. Links are in the description. We are rebuilding this channel from the ground up, and every single subscriber actually moves the needle right now. So we need you. We need you, okay? I don't want you to think that we don't, because we do. We need the help. So, the next story. The next story hits kind of different because it's not politics. It's about family. It's about legacy and money. And it involves a man a lot of us still grieve, especially when we think about the upcoming Spider-Man movie Avengers Doomsday. We talk about Chadwick Boseman's brothers. They're reportedly suing his widow, Taylor Simone Ledward. Ledward. Looks like Ledward. So Ledward. Yeah, Ledward. Over his estate. Let that land for a second. This man who gave us T'Challa, the Black Panther himself, that man played that role. Ooh, I loved the way he played that role. Who gave us Jackie Robinson, the man who fought colon cancer right in silence while still showing up to work. And then years after his passing, the people who love him the most, they are fighting, literally fighting in a legal fight over what he left behind. Don't you hate that? Don't you hate when, people just come out of the woodworks and then, because you wasn't left, you didn't leave them in the will, and they feel like because they're blood that they're entitled to, everything that you worked hard for, and you already had who you wanted to leave it behind to. That's crazy. I don't like it. But here's my journalist edge on this, though. And I say this with respect, not judgment. Estate fights like this almost never happen because people are greedy at their core. No, they don't. They happen because grief was never finished being processed before decisions had to get made. Decisions about money, about control, about who gets to be the keeper of someone's legacy. Grief and probate court do not mix well. It don't. We've seen this so much in Hollywood. Hollywood has shown us over and over and over again that when it comes to losing someone, and then you want to add in the money situation and also in the middle of it, yeah, it goes pretty bad. A will can tell you who gets the house. A will cannot tell you who gets to grieve the loudest or who feels like they were left out of the goodbye. That's usually what these lawsuits are really about underneath all of that paperwork. And practically speaking, if you're watching this and you don't have a will, a trust, or even a basic estate plan, this story is your reminder. It doesn't matter if you got millions or a few $1,000s in a car. Write it down. Make it legal. And talk to your family about it while you are still here to have that conversation. One thing you don't want to do, you don't want to, let the people you love find out what you wanted after you're gone. Because you can't speak from the grave. You can't. And I'll be honest, I don't know all the details of what's alleged in this filing, and neither does most of the internet dragging his widow's name through the mud right now, which is a real bad thing to do without having all the facts. Oh my God, that's so terrible. So here's my big axe, though. Hold that compassion for everybody in this story, including her, until we actually know what happened. Chadwick gave us grace on the screen. The least we can do is give his family some of that grace off too, for kind of forever. Now, I know this one's ping is flying already. And if it do, take the time out right now. Take about 60, 90 seconds if you feel the need to. We got a little bit of time. We continue to pass some time. So if you got anything you want to say on Boseman's estate story before moving on to segment 3, do so right now. Or if you were watching this back and something came to mind while you were, listening to me, this would be the perfect opportunity for you to hop in that comment section. I'm looking for those comments, and again, if you want to email me, because you don't want it public, that's also good. Press, PRESS, at marcus-hart.com. That's marcus-hart.com. Let's lighten up the mood a bit, shall we? We talked about death and people fighting over money. Because pop culture didn't take a day off this week at all. And neither should we. Let's talk about it. So 3 outs from Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding at Madison Square Garden, and this thing is still generating headlines all over the place. The 49ers tight end George Kittle came out this week saying he and his family had, quote, a fantastic time. A wedding that athletes from a rival conference are still talking about weeks later. Isn't that something? That's not just a celebrity event. That's a cultural moment. And it tells you something about how big this couple has actually gotten. They got a lot of attention. And on the other side of the celebrity summer coin, Drake hosted his second annual NOCTA minor retreat out in New Jersey. And the guest list was a who's who. Kevin Durant, Central C, Devin Booker, Sexy Red, all posted up under banners celebrating his Billboard accolades. One thing to note, too, about Sexy Red and Drake, they were spotted headed to the World Cup, earlier this week. That was no, they would have been like a week or two ago, but they just now leaked the pictures of the couple heading up to the World Cup, and they looked it all booed up and happy and stuff like that. But here's what I notice every single summer, though. When these stories drop back to back, we will talk about a wedding and a mansion party for like 3 weeks straight. And we couldn't even hold the country's attention on that Iran story I just gave you for 3 days. That's not a knock on Taylor or Drake. That's a mirror on all of us. Now, I'm not here to hate on either of these stories. Celebration is human. Joy is allowed. And honestly, we need more of both right now, given everything else in the headlines. I just want us to be a lot more intentional about it, though. Enjoy the wedding pictures, enjoy the party recaps, enjoy the booed up photos. Just don't let it be the only thing you know about the world this week, brother. Okay, brother? You got it, brother? So, on a happier, much quieter note, buried in the same news cycle somewhere, Leah Loom, Becca Tobin, announced she and her husband, Zach Martin, welcomed their second baby. A little early, too, through their surrogate. And, I'm still easy, a little, easy about surrogacy. I got my own thoughts on surrogacy. I'm not going to get into it. But that's the kind of story that doesn't trend for 3 weeks, though. But it's the kind that actually matters in somebody's living room tonight. Congratulations to that family. All right. Tell me in the chat, wedding of the summer or party of the summer. I want to see the debate with that. Take a couple of seconds and, put your comments in there if you're watching this back and you like what you're hearing so far, or, you don't like what you're hearing so far, or you think I'm silly or whatever, you don't like my hair. I got to get a line in soon. I got to get lined up, brother. I'm going to get my line in, brother. So just hold your horses on that. I got you. You won't have to look at me looking homeless for too long. I have my sights set on next week for my haircut appointment. But anywho, hopefully you guys are dropping those comments. Once again, you drop a comment, I will read it on the next episode, next live stream episode. If you want me to. I can always, acknowledge you. Or like I said, hit me up via email. Tell me what you think. Tell me what your thoughts, what's on your mind. Press at marcus-hart.com. That's PRESS at marcus-hart. So let's shift gears into tech for a minute because this one actually affects what's in your pocket. Yes, it does. So Samsung held its Galaxy Unpacked event this week in London. Yeah, they were over in London getting it on. So they officially launched a new foldable lineup, the Galaxy Z Fold 8 and the Z Flip 8 series, along with new smart watches. They really milking that. The foldables, they really milking that. People saying it's a couple of people out there who are diehard Samsung fans and they go crazy over these foldables. So foldables have gone from a gimmick like a few years ago to like their actual strategy now. Samsung, centers their whole brand around this now, and that's worth paying attention to. Like I said, every time a phone folds in half, somewhere a repair shop owner starts sweating. But that's the trade Samsung's betting you'll make: more screen, more flex, more look what my phone can do, in exchange for a device that's more fragile and more expensive than the slab phone in your pocket right now. Isn't that something? Brother, here's my actual voice. A voice. A voice. Here's my actual advice. Not just commentary. If you are due for an upgrade, don't buy on hype day one pricing. Don't day one, do not buy into the hype. Okay? Let the reviews do their things and the durability reports come out over the next few weeks before you drop that flagship foldable money. Technology journalism is this so you don't have to be the guinea pig. Okay? Keep that in mind. And zoom out for a second. This launch is happening where we are in the stretch of a real economic uncertainty with war, spending climbing, like we just talked about in segment 1. Companies like Samsung are still betting big on your phone, even when you are tightening up everywhere else. That tells you something about where tech companies think consumer priorities are actually set at. They think we're fools, okay? All I'm saying is don't be a fool. Don't be a fool at all. Don't let these people just bring you into the fold of their of their chaos. No pun intended. The fold. So let's keep it moving from your phone to the courtroom. Not the courtroom, the basketball court, the other court, basketball. Because sports had a big week, and what a way to end the week. We're gonna get into that too. But let's first talk about WNBA All-Star Weekend in Chicago. Okay. So it's WNBA All-Star Weekend, and Chicago is the center of basketball world right now. The skills challenge and three-point contest happened today at Wintrust Arena, with the All-Star game itself tipping off tomorrow, Saturday, at the United Center. And I want to say it plainly, okay, because it deserves to be said plainly. The WNBA is not a women's version of anything anymore. It is its own economic and cultural engine, selling out arenas, driving television numbers, and building superstars that a whole new generation of kids, girls and boys both alike, are growing up idolizing. And folks, brother, that's not a trend. That's an arrival. Okay? You can tell a league has made it when All-Star Weekend stops being a consolation event and starts being appointment TV. The WNBA is there, so we got to act like it because their pockets are a little bit more deeper too. Thanks to the collective bargaining they did, the new deal they was able to work out and all, so you might, it's okay to go down there and be a groupie, if you're a guy, and that's something we can go down there and be groupies, become basketball husbands or something. I don't know. Can you imagine that, the real basketball husbands of Atlanta or something? That'd be crazy. But if you are in Chicago right now, or if you got League Pass, the All-Star game is tomorrow night at the United Center. Go watch it. Take your kids there. Take your niece. Take your nephew. Representation shows the best when we actually show up, and that's a challenge out there to all of the women too out there. It's we cannot say that the glass ceiling is sealed tight and there's no way to break through it if you guys are not coming out to help push the very women that's working hard to get through that glass ceiling. Okay, if there is one. Nowadays it's not one. Women are able to do a ton of things, a ton of things. Okay, so let's shift gears over to the NBA, because this is the breaking news. Breaking news. Yes, LeBron James, he's on the move. Just earlier today, LeBron James announced that he's set to sign with the 76ers. Everything you know about Philadelphia super team, you're going to hear a lot about. Okay? So LeBron James, the official story goes, and this is according to USA Today, he announced July 24th, 2026, that he will join the Philadelphia 76ers on a 2-year, $8 million contract with a player option, marking his 4th NBA team and aiming to help the Sixers contend for a championship. So he is chasing a chip. Okay? That's clear because, anytime, a man of that age, who's set to turn 42 December 30th this year, so he's going to be 41 for the first half of the 2026-27 season. And then right as we, approach after the Christmas break and all, he'll be 42, playing in his 24th season, extending his record for the most seasons played ever. Okay. The contract is obviously veteran minimum. It's making it makes it his lowest paycheck that he's ever got in his entire season of his career. So it's going to be different. This guy is obviously looking at the new parents that's going to be associated with him, like forward Jaylen Brown, existing stars Tracy Maxey and Joel Embiid. So there's some good pieces that's going to be surrounding him. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting. The people are already hoping to get themselves a hold of a Philly jersey. One person who wasn't too thrilled about too thrilled about it, because in the middle of talking to the press, Trump was talking to the press earlier, and one of the reporters asked him, "Well, what do you think about LeBron James headed to Philly?" And his remarks was like, he thinks that he believes that. So how was it said? So he basically said that LeBron could be possibly racist, or he just don't like Trump. And he, followed that up with saying like he only likes people who like him. Maybe. I mean, are we commanded to like people that don't, like us? Do we really have to? That's a moral question, to really ask yourself. So one thing we do know is that we are commanded to love everyone, especially as Christians. We are commanded to love everyone. And if we're not doing that, we're definitely not walking in the walking the walk of our faith, or and we're being hypocrites. But the like part, I don't recall like Jesus ever saying that like we gotta like people. Do we absolutely gotta like people? Do we have to like someone's decision, or I don't I don't know. That's I think for me personally, like I have always been the person to like give you your distance when I can see that you don't like me. I'm not about to just play kiss behind to get you to like me. That's just weird. It doesn't like give you any self respect. Um, it doesn't do anything for you. At the end of the day. So, with that being said, folks, you have one more chance to jump in before we close out tonight. If you happen to be watching live, if you haven't watching live and you're playing a replay, this is a real good time to, make your final comments on and reactions on any of today's stories, the 5 stories plus the bonus one we just closed out with before we close out here. Okay. So let's bring all of this home, because 5 stories in one under an hour, basically a half hour. This is gonna be a pretty short show today. Because it's Friday, like why why should I mean, but it's now technically Saturday, of course. I spent my last part of my Friday with you guys. But anyway, so let's bring all of this home, because like I said, 5 stories plus a bonus and under an hour, half an hour, can start to feel like noise if we don't land somewhere real. We talked about a war that's causing billions with no end date. We talked about a legacy torn apart in the courtroom. We talked about weddings, mansions, foldable phones, and a basketball league finally getting his flowers. That's the news. And we also talk about a man who's way past his prime, you know, signing up for 2 more years to stay competitive and to go after cementing his legacy. That's the news. That's the world spinning exactly the way it's been spinning. But here's what I want to leave you with tonight. I want you to listen clearly too. So don't leave before hearing this. None of us control the headlines. We don't get to vote on whether Congress finds $37 billion for a war, or whether a family ends up in probate court fighting over a man we all love. What we do control is what we build with what's actually right in front of us today. Our own house, our own faith, our own 5 people we are responsible for. And that's where I always land on this show, no matter what's trending. Because chasing the news cycle without an anchor underneath you will wear you out. My anchor is my faith. When the world feels like it's spinning way too fast and way too loud, I go back to the same place every time, on my knees, asking God to give me wisdom for what I actually control, what I actually can control, and peace about everything I don't control. That's not a Sunday only practice for me. That's a Friday night after the news cycle practice for me too, going into Saturday too, brother. And hey, if this is your first time catching me and you're wondering who I am outside of breaking down the news, my main show is the Transform You Live show. It's a different lane than this one, deeper, more personal, faith-filled storytelling, real conversations about healing and purpose. So if at all tonight's show was the appetizer, Transform You is where I go all in. Go find it. It'll be worth your time. You can know everything happening in the world and still lose if you don't know who's anchoring you through it. Get informed, stay grounded. Don't let one without the other. Before I let you go, subscribe to the Urban News Journal right now, right here on YouTube and also on Spotify. That is the absolute single biggest thing you can do. It's time for me to go to sleep. I gotta go to sleep. If you don't do anything, subscribe, man. Okay, brother? Help this show grow back stronger than it was before. Follow us on Facebook and then on X too. All the links are down in the description. We're posting Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Same. I can't say same time, because it's not going to be same time until we figure out which time works best for everybody. So, but put it in your calendar though. We will be back Monday morning, and come back. I'm Marcus Hart. This is the Urban News Journal. Stay informed, stay grounded, and I will see you next time. Many blessings, peace, and lots of love.